YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2023-2024 NFL Divisional Round Weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this past weekend to start the postseason, it was a tough week, to say the least. Tough weekend for all picks involved. I matched my against the spread and straight up records. I had losing records in a 6-game week, which is brutal. But you know what? At the end of the day, fortunately, the one positive thing about it is that it doesn't really impact that much due to the shrinked sample. But going 2-4 against the spread and 2-4 straight up, it's not great. Not a great start at all to the postseason. Definitely that 62% threshold gets shrunk with only 7 games to go left in this NFL season, which is always sad. But this time, 2-4 against the spread and straight up. My overall postseason records now are 2-4 against the spread and straight up. And now overall for the year, through 278 games, I am now 135 and 136 with 7 pushes. So I'm back to being one game under 500. And straight up now, I'm 169 and 109 through the regular and postseason, which equals 60.8%. So again, bit unfortunate. Still have a good chance. Still have a chance to get above 500 with 4, 6, 7 games to go. Only need to go essentially 1 game above 500 the rest of the way to accomplish that goal against the spread. Straight up, 61 and a half. If I can go 7-0 through the last little bit, that would get me to 176 and 109. Definitely a down year from where I'm used to being for the overall year. But hey, it's how the season, crumbles in that way. But what a wild card weekend it was. From obviously the massive snow in Buffalo, New York, postponing the Steelers-Bills game from Sunday at 1 o'clock to Monday afternoon at 4:30. Want to commend all the Bills Mafia, all the Buffalo hardy people out there through shoveling, snow for $30-40 an hour, going through, making the snow explosions every time they threw touchdowns during the game, seeing that every beer that was at that game was frozen on solid contact. They didn't even need to, they were putting beers, both in Kansas City and Buffalo in freezers to keep them warm, which is weird, but it showed, on frozen contact how cold the beer was. So, kudos to all those people. I am not that delusional to go out and watch my football team out in that, cold temperatures, no-fill conditions. So, bravo to you people out there for watching it. But, the first game, Browns-Texans, what a battle. What a debut for C.J. Stroud. One of the best rookie debuts ever by, a quarterback. 271 yards, 16-21, 3 touchdowns. A sensational game. Brevin Jordan breaking away on that 75-yard screen. Christian Harris and Steven Nelson. Since Todd Collins, Joe Flacco threw back-to-back pick sixes. Last playoff quarterback to accomplish that feat. But I was incredibly impressed with Houston all around. Overall, great offensive line performance. Nico Collins having a breakout year. And it's very telling how amazing after 1 year, Nico Collins, a guy that I thought was at best a mid-2, showed that he could be a number 1. And you could argue, now they have 2 legit receivers because Tank Dell, who fractured his, I believe his ankle or his fibula, and has been out for most of the second half of the regular season. Tank's probably better than Nico as a raw talent. But going into the year, Nico's the number 1 receiver. And I think the Texans, with their $70 million in cap space, with the extra draft picks from the Cleveland Browns trade, I think this team is in one of the best, I think, honestly, and I'm not trying to make it, this is the best position the Houston Texans franchise has been in their entire franchise's history. All the draft picks, all the cap space, a rookie quarterback that if he wins on Sunday, I would say he's completed the greatest rookie season ever by a rookie quarterback in terms of numbers and results. Because the only last, rookie quarterback, I know Purdy did it last year as Mr. Relevant. That was a 5-game sample. And obviously we know with Brock Purdy, he's turned out pretty good in the Shanahan system. So But the last quarterback I can remember doing this was Big Ben. And also, I know that a bunch of rookies in this conference championship idea as well. 0-5 for the history of the NFL. So if C.J. Stroud getting there, it's an incredibly rare feat for him to get there in the first place. And he had better numbers than Ben or probably any of those other rookie quarterbacks getting to this conference championship game. But it was just a masterclass of an offensive and defensive performance. I will still maintain this, though. Kevin Stefanski should be the coach of the year. I think D'Amico outclassing him on Saturday night. A lot of people say, that should come into effect. But Stefanski, I thought, had a little bit more at stake. But I think at the end of the day, if you're asking me, especially with the news today, and anyways, hasn't heard, the Cleveland Browns have fired their offensive coordinator, their running back coach, and their tight end coach. Who do I think is the better overall coach? I'm taking D'Amico Ryans every day and twice on Sunday over Kevin Stefanski, who has definitely a questionable, track record over the last couple of years. But definitely he has a lot of pressure on him that if the Browns have a losing season in his fifth season, he will be gone as the Cleveland Browns head coach at the end of the year just because of this questionable decision and just kind of the murkiness of a lot of the talent there. But if you're going to put in a new offensive coordinator to go with Deshaun Watson, be very careful about what could happen with that adjustment. So, but kudos to the Texans. All-around dominant performance. Chiefs-Dolphins, very quickly. The Chiefs played a fundamentally solid game. Patrick Mahomes didn't have to do a lot. He threw a couple of touchdowns. Rashid Rice is the Chiefs' #1 wide receiver. He's done a very good job. I think he is their #1. I think he's a mid-2 for most other teams. Travis Kelce's still there. He blocks well. He still can catch big receptions. You have to respect him as a weapon. But the Miami Dolphins, once again, in the cold, the fish got froze. Frozen fish is never good. You have to thaw it out. And if you have to freeze fish like the Miami Dolphins, it's never good. And the Dolphins, Tua threw for about 199 yards. If you take out a chunk play, he threw for about 140 yards and a pick. About touchdown to Tyreek Hill. They couldn't run the ball. And nowhere in that game, as you were watching the game, did you ever feel the Dolphins had any chance to win that game. And I would just say this very quickly. For any Dolphins fans out there, and to be fair, to hold myself, I have a Tua jersey in my closet. And I might, think, even though I'm happy, look, Chris Greer, give him the extension, I can keep the Tua jersey. He will be the Dolphins' long-term quarterback. If you want the Fanatic's honest opinion, Tua Tagovailoa is not a franchise quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa is a great human. He is arguably today, through everything that's going on with the Dolphins franchise history, he's the third greatest quarterback in that franchise's history. You go Greasy, Marino. Objectively, probably it is Marino, Bob Greasy, and then Tua. Tua's probably third on that list, just all time talent, numbers, and all that. But if they give that man a 52 or a 50 to 53 million dollar extension, they have screwed themselves out of any long-term promise. Because it just seems like to me, when Tua goes up against the Dolphins, now are 5-11 the last 2 seasons under Mike McDaniel, with the #1 offense, with all the motion, the Kyle Shanahan tree. This Dolphins team, when they have to play good competition, look like frauds. They look irrelevant. They look sad. I know there are a lot of defensive injuries. Bradley Chubb, X Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland, Jerome Baker, Adam Van Ginkel. I get that a lot of the Dolphins defensive starters were not there. But you have to look at just where this team is going. Again, like I said, Chris Greer, the Dolphins general manager, please sign Tua so I can keep that jersey back in my closet and still feel good that, I can keep that jersey for the next several years. But objectively, as a team, that's the worst thing that can happen. Because I just don't believe Tua's not a guy that I think will ever get the Dolphins to a conference championship game. Heck, I'll even be this hot, and if people want to. I don't even think Tua Tagovailoa will ever get you to the second round. Tua Tagovailoa, the Dolphins have been out the last 2 rounds with how this team is going, with how certain, especially with the expanded format, if you're not going to be the 1 seed, I don't even know if Tua will ever get you out of the second round. Or get to the second round. I know he's not getting to the Super Bowl. But will he ever get the Dolphins to the second round? You could even question that. I don't even know if Tua is good enough with what talent and weapon around him. If he can't win the division, which I don't know if he should be the favorite. I think the Bills will continue to be the favorite as long as Tua is there. But yeah, I don't believe in Tua. And for the Chiefs, look, Patrick Mahomes continues to win at home, dominate at home, and that defense, Spagnuolo should be the assistant of the year because I think he's done a phenomenal job. And there's that. Let's see, Lions. Cowboys Packers very quickly. What a disaster by the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys laid an absolute egg in Jerry World on Sunday afternoon. Got outplayed from the jump by the Packers, who had that 75-yard touchdown drive. Aaron Jones had a career high in rushing yards, or a postseason career high. Over 100 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. The Green Bay Packers have never lost in AT&T Stadium. They have more wins in AT&T Stadium than the Dallas Cowboys have had. In 20, which is saying something. It's just an absolute debacle. Dan Quinn, Mike McCarthy, they got owned by Matt LaFleur and John Barry. Matt LaFleur put up a masterclass. Jordan Love, he was the third Packers quarterback in franchise history besides Lynn Dickey and Brett Favre to win his first ever playoff start, and I think he played better than those two did. And the Green Bay Packers, in the span of 7 to 10 weeks, looked like being one of the teams that you didn't know what the future held for the Packers, and Matt LaFleur's job could have been on the line, to where I'm looking at the Packers next year. I think they're in a position to be a top 3 team in the NFC. You told me next year, with everything going on, Niners, Lions, Packers. Because that group is the youngest team in the league by a mile. Good receivers around. They have Jair coming back. They have a lot of their big defensive stars signed long term. They could use help on the offensive line. They could use help at the safety position. Savage did make a great pick 6. And for the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott is slightly better Black Tony Romo. That's what he is. He's better than Tony Romo, and I honestly thought if he would have won and gotten into the championship game, he could have been the 3rd greatest Cowboys quarterback. But he's still, today, after that loss, now 2-5 in the postseason, he's still firmly the 4th greatest quarterback in the Cowboys franchise history. And if he can ever get to an NFC championship game, which I seriously doubt at this point in his career through 8 seasons, the Dallas Cowboys should fire Mike McCarthy. They've had a couple days to think about it. But then also, I believe the best thing for the Dallas Cowboys moving forward is trading Dak Prescott. Trade Dak Prescott coming off his best statistical year overall. Was the 2nd team All-Pro quarterback this year. I believe the Dallas Cowboys should trade Dak Prescott today. Or this year and go with Cooper Rush and Trey Lance and take all the money from Dallas. Take all that money and put it into CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and getting other defensive help. Looking at Stephon Gilmore, looking at Brandon Cooks, looking at Michael Gallup, looking at these rosters and trying to improve the roster with that money and try to just move forward. Because I honestly believe at this point, if you give Dak year 9, 10, 11, 12, or up to year 13 of a 5-year extension, he's never going to get Dallas anywhere at this point. He's never going to do it. If Jordan Love can look as great as he was on the road in his first ever playoff game as a first-time full starter in 4 seasons against Dak, who's been the starting quarterback for the Cowboys since week 1, or since week 1 of 16, that's a problem. So, those are my thoughts on that. Lions, Rams, shout out to Half Moon's Picks. Congratulations, buddy, you won a playoff game. Congratulations to the city of Detroit, even though I took the Rams. The Lions, first of all, I think everybody agreed, that was the best game of the entire wild card weekend. And honestly, it's a rare game and I love people's opinions, the Lions-Rams game was a rare game to where I didn't have any problem with a side of the ball, with certain players. Yeah, you could complain about the Rams and Lions running attacks. That they basically could not do anything sufficiently well throughout the entire game. And also Kyron Williams left the game with a hand injury. But that was objectively a weird game to where you can look at everybody on the Rams and Lions staff and you can tip their cap and say that was an evenly coached game by two good coaches. Sean McVay, I would still think he's a better coach than Dan Campbell, but Sean and Dan had about an even draw. Both quarterbacks played exceptionally well. I would give Goff the advantage because he won, and he was able to make the plays when he needed to win. Puka Nacua was an absolute beast. 9 receptions, 181 yards, and a touchdown. Cooper played well. Stafford threw some incredible passes. The best pass of the game, though, was the one to Tutu Atwell that went right through a Lions defender's hands. But that's a rare game to where you can look at the kicking, the special teams, the defensive plays, and say, because Stafford only got sacked 2 times, and one of those he actually tripped. So you actually can blame the offensive line for one of those, one sack the entire game. Like I said, that was the only game this weekend that I thought was objectively entertaining all the way throughout. And I honestly have no blame. I give both teams their credit. What a game. Congrats to the Lions. First playoff win since 1991. I saw the fans crying in the stands. And now you only have to wait, from today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days till you get to host your next one. And you could be in your first NFC Championship game since 91. Which is crazy to think about. That the Lions are going to get to an NFC Championship game before the Dallas Cowboys over the past 28 years. And that's sad. But that's saying something. But kudos to the Lions. Kudos to the Rams. I also just want to say this, though. Matt Stafford, an Eli Manning type complex. He had one phenomenal run. All 4 other times when he made the playoffs, doesn't have a win. He's 4-4 in the postseason. And objectively, this was his best postseason game, honestly. This was the first time I could watch Stafford play a postseason game and go, you know what, that wasn't his fault. Like I said, rare game to where, penalties, that's a rarity in the league. Because, you can look at every other game. Browns defense folded. Dolphins offense folded. The Cowboys folded entirely. The Steelers just looked bad offensively. The defense got worked for the most part. And then the Bucks-Eagles game, the Eagles folded. The Eagles and Cowboys both folded. The Dolphins offense folded. The Browns defense folded. Joe Flacco turned into Joe Fluka. You can look at sides of the ball on the losing teams and say, oh, that was bad there. Look at the coaching here. Look at the discipline here. Look at the team here. Lions, Rams, objectively, if you watch that game, there was nothing you really could complain about. You can complain about the officiating. By far, you can complain about the officiating. And Puka Nacua, by the way, got screwed on that holding call. But honestly, like I said, besides the officiating, which is for both sides had every right to complain about, that was a clean game by the coaching staffs to where I literally just sat there, applauded, and said, you know what, that was a great football game. And honestly, that was the best wild card game the entire weekend, if we're all being honest. And then Steelers-Bills, the Bills handling their business, one of the better home records. Josh Allen has never lost in the wild card round throughout his career, besides 2019. Since 2020, never lost in the wild card round. Has played exceptionally well at home. 21 of 30, 3 touchdowns. Dalton Kincaid had a nice touchdown. Khalil Shakur had a phenomenal juke and route and 4 missed tackles to get the touchdown for the Bills that iced the game. The Pittsburgh offense, it did enough. And also, by the way, the Bills got robbed of a fumble. Just very quickly. The Bills got robbed of a fumble. They did. The Bills got robbed when you watch the game. The Bills got robbed of a fumble. I can't believe the Fryer move. They said the Pat Fryer move touched the ball and the ball moved forward. No, it didn't. That was a bunch of BS. He literally didn't touch the ball, and the Bills defender clearly had the ball in bounds before it went out. That was a fumble. And the Bills should have had the ball, at that point. I think they ended up scoring a touchdown. And at the end of the day, look, and I'll talk about the Eagles-Bucks game here in a second. Then I'll get to my picks very quickly after that. what I want to say about the Pittsburgh Steelers is this, okay? I've everybody obviously, if you've been following the sport, has enjoyed the newest Mike Tomlin meme of him standing there talking about Brooke Pryor from ESPN, the Steelers reporter, a very good reporter, asked a genuine question about his contract, and of course he just walked out mid interview. Fortunately, I thought that was the beginning of the interview, but no, he actually asked to answer some questions and he gave statements. So you can't bash Mike for that nearly as much as people did. Kyle Brandt, the idiot Kyle Brandt on Good Morning Football. When you look at the idea of looking at Mike Tomlin, and now it's being said, and maybe now that he told the team that he is coming back in 2024 and that the Steelers would like to work on a long-term deal with him. I respect Mike Tomlin a lot. He's done a phenomenal job for 17 years. His crown jewel achievement is 17 years without a losing season. That's great. But since 2021, the team has hit a ceiling of 10 wins over the past 3 seasons. Actually, since 2018. 2018, 2019. From 2018, 2019, 2020, 21. In 5 of the past 6 seasons, the Steelers have had 9 to 10 wins in 5 of the last 6 seasons. They have had horrible quarterback play. And I know Mike Tomlin, he's been there for a while, and Kevin Colbert and now Omar Khan are the general managers, and they are probably going to pick a quarterback. But Mike Tomlin, there has to come a point where the Pittsburgh Steelers have to realize at the end of next year that making the playoffs was not the goal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's very much, in my opinion, what the Seahawks brass said to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll and Mike Tomlin, both defensive coaches, both all-time great coaches, would immediately get interviews if they still had interest. If Pete Carroll was on the open market, he'd get interviews from everybody. If Mike Tomlin was on the open market, he'd get interviews from everyone. And I would hire Mike Tomlin and Carroll in certain situations in a heartbeat. But there just comes a moment to where the team caps out. There is a ceiling with the Pittsburgh Steelers, just like with the Seattle Seahawks, the way they were currently constructed under the management of both their head coaches, that I don't think they're going to break. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. They've lost 5 straight playoff games. I think it's like the second or third longest streak active in the league, and it's the longest streak ever by the Pittsburgh Steelers overall. And all I'm saying is that if they don't get a veteran quarterback or they don't draft a quarterback, if I am the Pittsburgh Steelers after the 2024 season, unless they are wanting to really give them that extension, I am saying to Pittsburgh, we will agree to mutually part ways. Or unless you do not want to coach again, and again, Mike Tomlin will be 52 years old at the end of next season. So he has at least 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years left in his coaching career. I would say to Mike Tomlin, if they cannot win a playoff game next year, or if they don't fix the quarterback situation at all, or bring in any quarterback, veteran quarterback at all, you need to talk to Mike about mutually parting ways. Because I just don't think, if to give him year 19, 20, 21, that's what, it's basically saying the Rooneys are fine with that. And I think that should be more criticized if that happens, if they don't fix it. Because I think, honestly, like the Seahawks, the Steelers have capped out at being a wild card winning team. And I think, look, Mike Tomlin could coach somewhere else and be great. I think he'd be great with the Chargers now. He could be great with the Falcons. He could be great, in a lot of different other areas. But I just think his time in Pittsburgh should be coming to a close, to where if they don't win a playoff game next year, you just talk to Mike and say, can we mutually part ways if you want to continue to coach, or if you are done coaching, because he's had a 17-year career. He could retire, be a member of the media, or just advise the Pittsburgh Steelers on their next search. But I think it'd be a great voice. But I just think it's time to move on if they don't give him that deal. Because I just feel like they have capped out like the Seahawks. And I think for the Steelers franchise moving forward, that might be the best thing after next year. So, but there's that. And then Eagles-Bucks, that was a train wreck by the Eagles. One of the all-time collapses in Philadelphia history, from 10-1 to 11-7 to, having phenomenal wins against the Chiefs, the Bills, the Dolphins, to losing to the Cardinals, Giants, and getting blown out by the Giants and Bucks in the last 2 weeks. Having Drew Lock go 92 yards on you after losing to the Niners and Cowboys in embarrassing fashions. This Eagles team has a lot more questions, and I think, unfortunately for Eagles fans, they are more similar to Dallas going into this year than not. I don't think they want to admit that, but that's the truth. So, all right, so let me get into my picks for this week. That was my little recap of Wildcard Weekend. And anybody out there, if anybody wants to have any thoughts, I would be glad to ask, or if you have any points that you'd like to debate with me about. Love to hear it. So, all right, so let me get into my picks. So, on Saturday, in the first game of Divisional Weekend, I feel bad for the Texans because, once again, they are first up at 4:30. It's every year in the Houston Texans franchise history since they've expanded this format, or just every year, the Texans are always on first. I feel bad for them, and I hope next year, if they're good and they get a better spot or in a higher spot with C.J. Stroud, they put the Texans not on first. Yeah, but who's on first? Who's on first? But this will Abbott and Costello joke. But on Saturday night, when the 4-seeded Houston Texans travel to Baltimore to take on the number 1 seeded Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Houston plus 9.5. Then on Saturday night, when the 7-seeded Green Bay Packers go to San Francisco in the 10th and record-breaking postseason matchup between these two teams, they take on the number 1 seeded San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 10-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here minus 10 and San Francisco straight up. The next game, when the 4-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Detroit to take on the number 3-seeded Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Tampa Bay plus 6. And then lastly, in the Sunday night game on CBS, to close out Divisional Weekend, the number 3-seeded Kansas City Chiefs travel to the number 2-seeded Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Buffalo here with the 2.5 because I think the number was key. I've probably taken KC with plus 3 or plus 3.5. I will take Buffalo here minus 2.5 and Buffalo straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Baltimore Ravens over the Houston Texans. This is a game, folks, to where the Baltimore Ravens, this is the second time the Ravens have had a number 1 seed. We have a lot of scarring from the last time we played an NFC South team as the number 1 seed when Lamar won the MVP. So a lot of scar tissue for a lot of fans. But when you look at the Ravens, Lamar's had an all-pro year. We have the number 1 defense at points, yards, sacks, and takeaways. Lamar is 0-2 all-time in the divisional round. But the Texans, they are 2-10 all-time against the Ravens. And throughout the regular and postseasons, through all the years, the last 20 years, the Baltimore Ravens have never lost to the Texans at home. I know there's a first time for everything. And look, I think this Houston Texans team, the way they played and the way C.J. Stroud's evolved, we played C.J. his first game as a rookie, and we won 26-9. And he looked like a rookie. He did not look that great. He looked frazzled. He looked rattled. And Lamar did not play that well against the Houston Texans defense either. But that was week 1. This is now week 20. And over the last 17 weeks where C.J. Stroud has played, he's definitely evolved and matured as one of, I think, a overall top 10 quarterback, and objectively in the AFC, an arguable top 5 AFC quarterback over the last, 17 weeks when he's played. So, but at the end of the day, the Ravens, they understand what's happened. They know, they learned a lot of those players that were on that team in 2019 that are still there. They learned, they know that scarring. They know how, dominant we've been. Todd Monken's been fantastic. I trust Todd Monken with the passing game, with the weapons of Odell, Zay, Isaiah Likely, Kolar. We have Dalvin Cook now on this roster. We signed him a couple weeks ago, which is exciting. And I just think for the Ravens, this is a game where the Ravens understand the significance of saying, hey, we will get to host our first ever AFC Championship game in franchise history against a Bills team that can be erratic and a KC team that is probably the most vulnerable it's been in in the Patrick Mahomes era. Maybe 19 you could question a bit, but definitely offensively. And with our defense going up against Mahomes this time around, the last time we played them in Baltimore, we won off a huge fourth down conversion, which iced out the clock. But, this time around, we have the better receivers. We have just as good a defense as the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion. I think we have the better secondary. But playing a Houston team that, again, the good thing for them is they have no pressure on them. They had no pressure entering this game. When they made the playoffs, they have no pressure on them now. That even if we blow them out, which maybe could happen, I think the Ravens understand, who we are, the comfortableness of it. Todd Monken will call a very good game. Lamar already said that right after the Texans won and he knew that he was playing the Texans, he started studying film and learning and scouting. And I just think, again, the Ravens, we've never lost to this team ever in any iteration at home. And I think the Ravens will play one of their better games to get the confidence of saying we will get to our first home AFC Championship game, which would be an incredible moment for a Baltimore fan like myself to see. But I'm going to give Houston the plus 9.5 because I think this Houston team is much better from their first game. They've gelled. They have talent. Stroud's just been phenomenal. I think he will play much better than he did week 1. The Texans losing Noah Brown, though, and Tank, and only really having to worry about Nico is a positive. And I think Dalton and Brevin are okay. Brevin's speed I'm a bit concerned about. But I just think the Ravens, home field advantage, confidence, rest, scoring, experience, that should win the day to get us to our first AFC Championship game since 2012. So that's all like Baltimore here straight up at the Houston Texans plus 9.5. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Green Bay Packers. This is one to where the San Francisco 49ers have won 4 straight games against the Green Bay Packers in the postseason. And at the end of the day, when you look at the Packers, Matt LaFleur has done a masterful job of outcoaching Mike McCarthy mostly at every turn. And Matt LaFleur with Jordan Love, it's been a great run. You could argue that, like I said in my last video, that after you took CeeDee Lamb out, and by the way, CeeDee Lamb had a very bad first half, which turned into the bad game overall for the Cowboys, I think, in general. But you look at this 49er team, this 49er roster is different. It's arguably it's the best roster construction in the NFC, second best roster overall, maybe you could argue behind the Baltimore Ravens. But this Niners team, it has Debo, it has Ayuk, McCaffrey's a full participant in practice. And Kyle Shanahan knows Matt LaFleur. Kyle has always been more of a mentor to Matt. And I just think, throughout the years, LaFleur won a couple of those battles. But every time, in the big moments in the postseason, Shanahan's been able to win those matchups. And even when Rodgers and the Packers won those games against LaFleur, over the last couple of years, or in 2021, it came down to the very end, where I think the 2021 game, Rodgers threw it to Adams at the end. They got a field goal. That one, I forget the other time when the Packers beat the Niners. But these games are usually particularly close. But when you're looking at this scenario, Jordan Love is playing a Niners defense well rested. He's playing and I just think the Niners offense is much more complex. There's a lot more talent that they have to worry about. And the Packers defense, for the most part throughout the entire year, has been a very bad defense. And I think that the Cowboys, once the Cowboys started to get into a deficit, and to be fair, Kyle Shanahan kind of the same thing, to where if you get Kyle Shanahan down early, he really cannot come back, especially if you get him down 7 in the fourth quarter. He's never won a game where he's trailed by 7 points or more in the fourth quarter. So I do think if Jordan Love can play well, this game could be a lot more competitive than people think. But I think with Brock Purdy's rest, with Brock Purdy's confidence, he played well in his first playoff game, last year. He played well in the divisional. He played okay in the divisional round last year. I think the San Francisco 49ers are just fundamentally better in most spots. The Packers lost one of their linebackers to a torn ACL. That's always tough in postseasons. Also, shout out to Tyler Higbee, same thing. He tore his ACL, so he's probably out for the beginning of next year, which is brutal. But that's why you keep playing playoff games, to have these moments. But I'm going to take the 49ers here to win this game based off the better roster, being at home, the history of this rivalry in the postseason so far. Last 4 postseason games, and I think two of them have been with Shanahan against LaFleur. Shanahan's won the game. Shanahan the first time blew him out. The second time it was in Lambeau. That was a weird field goal game by Garoppolo. This one, I feel like it's going to be an 11 to 14 point game. I think Jordan Love has played well enough, and the Niners secondary has been banged up, and they really only have one good corner. But I think that Niners pass rush going up against that Packers offensive line, I think Jordan Love's going to have a bit of a tough time. And I think the Niners get the win comfortably to get to their 4th, which is kind of crazy to think about, or their 4th NFC Championship game over the last 5 seasons, which is phenomenal consistency right there. So that's like San Francisco here, -10, and San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is one to where I'm going with the better quarterback. And I think in this environment, and also shout out, by the way, if anybody's seen it, please check out the press clip when there was the one local Tampa reporter, or the one reporter in Tampa, that asked Todd Bowles objectively about the temperature in Detroit, Michigan being about 13 degrees on Sunday afternoon, not realizing, I guess, or not thinking, that the Detroit Lions have played in a dome for the past 50 years. Before they made Ford Field, they played in the Pontiac Silverdome. So the Lions, for over the longest time, have never played outside. You know, again, it could have been just simpler, but it's just one of the because it's just, objectively, you don't know, or you didn't think that the Detroit Lions, that, you know, if you're part of the Tampa media, if you're covering it for Tampa, that you didn't know that the Lions played in an indoor stadium for over 50 years? Or even, not even if you knew about the Pontiac Silverdome. I knew about the Silverdome because I'm a wrestling fan, and I watched WrestleMania 3, which was in the Pontiac Silverdome. The record 92,000 people. So, but even if you did not, Ford Field's an indoor stadium. Ford Field is an indoor stadium. The only 2 teams in the NFC North that have to go outside are the Bears and the Packers at Lambeau and Soldier. The Vikings, when it says US Bank, that's an indoor stadium. So, you know, yeah, but anybody out there, please watch that clip. It's one of the weirdest and dumbest questions I've seen, and again, you know, but it was just amazing that I actually heard, you know, a local Tampa reporter ask Todd Bowles, you know, what are you worried about at 13-degree temperature? And then he literally just looks at the camera and goes, well, they play in a dome. They've done that for 50 years. So we're not really worried about the temperature. Which, yeah, absolutely right. But to get back to the game, I'm taking the Lions here. Just better quarterback play. Look, Baker Mayfield has revitalized his career. He will be the Bucs quarterback long term. I do think that Baker Mayfield should deserve more scrutiny after this year because he only made $4 million in a base salary. He's made about, you know, $1 to $2 million in incentives. Good for him. Bravo. Had a 4,000-yard season. Everything about that way. Also, by the way, Dave Canales might leave and become a head coach. If they are somehow able to keep Dave Canales, the former Seattle quarterback coach, who I honestly think that's where he should go. Dave Canales should be the new Seattle head coach, and Dan Quinn should be the new defensive coordinator for the Seahawks if he gets fired from Dallas. But I am taking Detroit here just based off better quarterback play. I think the running games are about similar. The receiving cores are about similar. The defenses, I think Detroit's offensive line will hold up against the blitz, and they'll prepare for blitzes. And I think Ben Johnson and Dave Canales can equally match up because I think Tampa has a bit of a better defensive back end. But I think Todd's going to try to win with his front, and I'll trust Detroit's offensive line compared to Tampa's. And at the end of the day, if Jared Goff can have more time compared to Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff will win this game. They played this game back in Week 6 earlier this year. It was a 20-6 game that basically got broken when Jared Goff threw that 45-yard touchdown to Jamison Williams. Do I think the Bucs have been better than that? Yes, they have played better for the most part over the last, most weeks. Over the last 7 or 8 weeks, you can discount the Saints game, which was bad, and the Panthers game that basically, if they didn't play the Panthers, they probably would have lost. But they dominated the Eagle team. Baker became the second quarterback or the first quarterback in NFL history to have 300-plus passing yards and 3+ touchdowns for two different teams in playoff debuts. He also has the same amount of playoff wins as Dak Prescott, which is saying something. The Dak Prescott, is about to make $56 million, and Baker Mayfield has the same amount of playoff wins. One was a first-round pick that's been discarded. One's been seen as a franchise quarterback. Just a lot of food for thought there. But in this game, give me the Lions here. Better quarterback, home environment, knows the area, knows the turf, and I just think Detroit's offensive line will block against the Bulls blitz better. They'll be more prepared for it, and Ben Johnson has a little bit more creativity, and he out-schemes Dave Canales more than Dave Canales can out-scheme Aaron Glenn in this game. Should be a great game, and I love this for fans because talk about a story. The Bucks and the Lions. I know the Bucks made it to the conference championship game a few years ago, but that was with Tom Brady. Nobody thought, even with Baker, even if you loved Baker to death, nobody thought that Baker Mayfield, at even his highest achievement apex this year, would be in an NFC championship game. And for the Lions, first one since '91, and they're going to be one step away from the gosh darn Super Bowl. And if they somehow beat the Niners, that I think, or if the Packers-Lions won an NFC North battle, and the Detroit Lions make the Super Bowl, what a story! And I think it would be very hard for anybody out there, unless maybe it's Bills. Even though I'd root for the Lions personally because the Bills have at least gotten there, and the Bills just But yeah, I'm gonna. But Detroit, though, rooting for them. If the Ravens can't make it, that'd probably be the one team besides Purdy. I'm a big Brock Purdy fan, so Brock. The 7th round pick. That's my first big NFC story I'm rooting for. If the Ravens don't make it, the second one will be Detroit. Restore the roar. So, but that's why I like Detroit here, straight up at Tampa Bay +6. And lastly, the Buffalo Bills over the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills here -2.5, based on the fact of where, look, the Chiefs have never. It's kind of a funny argument here. The Bills over the last 3 years have gone to Kansas City, and they beat them in 3 consecutive regular seasons. The Bills have knocked out the Chiefs in the last 2 postseasons. The Bills, the one time Patrick Mahomes had gone to Kansas City in the regular season, Patrick Mahomes won. And it's just one of those weird ideas to where I feel like the Buffalo Bills have the confidence to play this team. The Bills have a lot of defensive injuries. Or they added some more defensive injuries, especially losing Terrell Bernard. Their leading tackler, over 140 tackles. And to me, that's big. And also an underrated injury, Sam Martin, their punter. Sam Martin has a hamstring injury, and he was kind of dealing with a lot of pain throughout. But I am looking at this Bills-Chiefs game and saying, the thing that I am concerned about, or the 3 things I'm going to go with. A, Patrick Mahomes has never won or has never started in a genuine, true road playoff game. Never done that. 2, Andy Reid only has 1 road win in his entire Chiefs tenure. That was back in 2015. Andy also just overall, take the Philadelphia time as well, not a good road coach in the postseason. Andy is 19-9 at home in Philly and Kansas City. He is 4-7 all-time, Eagles and Chiefs, on the road. I trust that this Bills defense can play well enough. I trust the Bills at home having the crowd behind them. I don't know if Mahomes, will be able to be effective, in those spots. I know the Bills are banged up, and I know it's Josh Allen, and you never know. Josh Allen had one of his cleanest games, in a while on Monday afternoon against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if he's going to be that clean again this time around against Kansas City. And it's a new season, and Patrick Mahomes has 12 postseason wins. He has more postseason wins already than Aaron Rodgers. You're looking at a 5-4 quarterback in the postseason against a 12-3 quarterback in the postseason. And Patrick Mahomes actually does better on the road throughout his career than he does at home. Just overall regular season, he's a better road quarterback than a home quarterback. But I will take the Bills here. Home field advantage, the confidence of the crowd. And I just don't trust Andy Reid in an environment that's not at home that he can win a big road postseason game because he's only done it once in the last 9 years. He hasn't had to worry about it, but he's only done it once in the last 9 years. So, or once in his entire Chiefs tenure. And that, even to take out the Mahomes years, 13, 14, 15, 16, or 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. You know, Mahomes got drafted in 17, but he only played one game. In the 5 years that Andy Reid was the coach before Mahomes, he played in 3 road games and was 1-2 and was 1-4 overall. You know, he's only played in 3 road games his entire time as Chiefs head coach. Only won one of them. Didn't look good in any of the other of them. And I think Josh Allen's better than Brian Hoyer, and I think the Bills win based off those metrics. So that's what I like Buffalo here, -2.5, and Buffalo straight up. So those are my thoughts for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out other YouTube prognosticators like Half Moon's Picks, Geo Knows, Fire and Brim Sports, The Goat House, Sports Fan Entertainment, Andrew Warren. Please check out those guys and gals that make predictions like I do every week. And my goal for next week is to have my conference championship predictions, unless the weather, changes again, out by Monday afternoon, because it's only going to be 2 games, so the video should be shorter. And then after that, I will probably make my Super Bowl video either the next Monday or Tuesday, and then we'll have 2 weeks, and then I'll have my review video, and then we will wrap up another season. And it's very sad, but I am excited for the end. So like I said, everybody out there, plan is for Monday, next Monday, for the conference championship weekend predictions. But that is it. So good luck to all players, coaches, fellow prognosticators, any playoff daily fantasy players. Best of luck. And until next week, this is Matthew and I signing off. Until then, everyone, so long.